Oh, Canadian, I would set it to 1 week by the Bare Naked Ladies. It's been A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, and a T, U, V.
That was comedian Ivan Decker, along with Martha Chavez and Craig Lazone. And that wraps up this Best of Because News Rage-worthy edition. The show is written and produced by Vanessa Greco, David Carroll, Alex Redekop, Phil Lung, Jess Klimowski, and me, Gavin Crawford.
You're listening to CBC Radio 1. CBC, always here for Canada.
Here's to the bowl. The Professional Women's Hockey League is back. Lace up, strap in, and tune in to Hockey Saturdays on CBC, where you can catch the best women's hockey players competing head-to-head with everything they've got. The puck drops Saturdays at 2 p.m. Eastern on CBC, CBC Gem, and cbcsports.ca. Don't miss it. We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. It's news you can trust, delivered when you want and where you want on Canada's news app. Now with CBC Radio 1.
This is CBC News. At 12 o'clock, we're at plus 3 degrees with mainly sunny skies over downtown Winnipeg. Good afternoon. I'm Matt Humphrey. 3 years ago today, Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine.
How many people they killed, and thousands in the prison, and stolen children. And that's why we'll never forget it, and we can't forget it.
That's Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky hosting a global roundtable today in Kyiv. 13 world leaders are on hand in the Ukrainian capital, including Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
Might no longer makes right in this world. That's what has led to 80 years of incredible stability and prosperity, not just in Europe, but around the world, because of the institutions we built out of the ashes of World War II. And standing up for those institutions is in the best interest of every single one of us.
Trudeau made the trip to Kyiv with a commitment to deliver another 25 light armored vehicles to the Ukrainian military. As well, Canada is turning over $5 billion in seized Russian assets. The Canadian Water Agency is spending more than $1 million to clean up algae blooms in the Lake of the Woods. The money will fund 4 projects. 2 of the groups involved in the work are Indigenous. Grand Council Treaty 3 and the Métis Nation of Ontario will collaborate with the Water Agency to reduce phosphorus and other nutrients in the Lake of the Woods basin. The lake is vital to Indigenous culture, fishing, and biodiversity. It's also a popular recreational area. Over 200,000 Manitobans have now applied for a new plastic health card. Last month, the province opened up online registration to receive the new cards. They'll replace the paper cards, which have been in Manitoba wallets for decades. Applicants should begin to receive new health cards in the coming days. Those cards are produced in Canada by a Canadian company. The 4 Liberal leadership candidates square off tonight in a French language debate in Montreal. The federal party will pick a new leader in about 2 weeks. Janice McGregor has the story.
The Quebec audience tonight is absolutely critical for the Liberal Party's fortunes. Public opinion surveys suggest that a significant part of the Liberals' recent uptick in support could be attributable to voters now thinking twice about voting for the Sovereignist Party. Party organizers considered a long list of topics for this debate, but they landed on 4 final themes. Canada's place in the world, a first round that's going to include Canada-U.S. relations. Then, competing ideas for growing a strong economy. Third, affordability measures, housing, healthcare. And finally, climate action. Party supporters are going to be filling in a ranked ballot, which means that if no frontrunner wins a majority of first choices, being a party's second choice might be critical. So it'll be interesting to see how aggressive the contestants get against each other tonight, or whether they're going to channel it all instead on the 2 men waiting in the wings for whoever wins this thing, Pierre Poilievre and Donald Trump. Janice McGregor, CBC News, Ottawa.
Confusion, concern, and chaos loom large today as hundreds of thousands of U.S. federal employees begin their work week. They're facing a deadline of midnight Eastern tonight to present Elon Musk with a detailed list of their recent accomplishments or risk losing their jobs. Musk is heading up the Trump administration's Government Efficiency Task Force. Overseas, the Israeli military is stepping up its presence in the West Bank, the occupied West Bank, and Israel's defense minister says the deployment could continue for at least a year and potentially longer. Sasha Petrusek has your details.
Tanks roll across the occupied West Bank for the first time in more than 2 decades. Israel's show of force against what Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says is increased activity by Hamas and other groups in refugee camps. We are fighting terror on all fronts, he says, and will stay as long as necessary. Israel ramped up its forces here in the wake of 3 bus bombs near Tel Aviv. The camps, home for Palestinian families originally displaced by Israel's creation in 1948, have long been strongholds for militant groups. They've now been mostly emptied by the Israeli military, which has destroyed houses and torn up infrastructure, forcing 40,000 Palestinians to move. Hundreds of fighters and civilians have been killed here in the past months. Sasha Petrusek, CBC News, Jerusalem.
And finally, Grammy-winning singer Roberta Flack has died.
Killing me softly with his song, killing me softly with his song, telling my whole life.
That's Flack with her 1973 hit Killing Me Softly. It was named Record of the Year at the Grammys, which was the same award she won the previous year for another top 10 single, The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face. Flack died today at the age of 88. Her death comes 3 years after she was diagnosed with ALS. And that is your CBC News from Winnipeg. For news anytime, you can head to our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba, or you can use the CBC News app. Taking a look at the forecast for the afternoon ahead, we have a chance of showers this afternoon in Winnipeg with wind from the west and a high around plus 4 degrees. Brandon, a mix of sun and cloud, and a high around plus 3 degrees. In Dauphin, you're seeing a chance of showers this afternoon, a high of plus 1. Flin Flon, you're looking for a high of minus 5 and mainly cloudy skies. Thompson, a high around minus 12 with a chance of flurries. And in Churchill, mainly sunny, a high around minus 23 degrees with wind. You're listening to CBC.
Good afternoon, Manitoba. You're listening to Radio Noon here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Corey Funk. Good to be with you. Coming up on the show this hour, with the RRSP deadline looming, a finance expert joins us to answer your questions about how to make the most of your registered retirement savings plan. But this half hour on the show, we're going to hear how a Ukrainian living in Dauphin is feeling 3 years after Russia invaded his country. Also this half hour on the show, the end of an era. A rescue animal farm is shutting its doors after almost 8 years. We're going to hear why. But first, the Brandon Bear Clan is scrambling to find funding to keep its 2 staff employed. It's all coming up right here on Radio Noon. For 3 years, funding from an anonymous donor has allowed the Brandon Bear Clan to keep its 2 staff employed. But now that funding has dried up, which means those 2 staff could be out of a job, and the organization's goal of keeping their community safe may get a lot harder. Janelle Zazalak is a volunteer patrol and chair of the Brandon Bear Clan's Women's Council, and she joins us now. Good afternoon.
Hi.
So how important are these 2 staff to Brandon Bear Clan's day-to-day operations?
Oh, wow. Our staff are essential. They're our frontline workers. They're our first point of contact to community members during the week. We depend on them on a day-to-day basis. They work out of the Friendship Center building at 603 Princess. And they're the ones that greet community members in the morning, help determine what their needs are and how they can be supported, whether that's providing them with a new set of clothes or helping them fill out request forms, helping people fill out applications for housing through the Friendship Center, or helping them get set up with organizations like Housing First or CHHA. We depend on them to sort through donations and ensure that they make it to where they're needed. And they're the ones that ensure that the food is made and that the bags and the supply kits are all prepped and ready to go for our weekend patrol. They also represent Bear Clan at Hub and at community access meetings with the NRC. And they're often the ones that get called when people call in saying that they found needles and they need them to be picked up. So during the week, it's our staff that does that.
How long do you have till the funding dries up?
I can't give you an exact number for that, but because we're so dependent on our staff that we are working really hard to make sure that we don't have to make those calls, like to determine what we're going to do or what that will look like without our staff. So it runs out this year, and
How hard has it been in the meantime to find that funding to replace the money from this donor?
I'll be honest, we're struggling. There's just not a lot of funding sources out there. We're actively applying for grants. We have some stable donations, but nothing. We haven't found anything that will replace the amount that the anonymous donor provides us that enables us to ensure that our staff can stay employed. We have one full-time and one part-time staff member, and we need them.
What will it mean for Brandon Bear Clan if you can't keep these two staff employed?
That's a tough question. I don't want to think about what that'll mean. We're entirely dependent on volunteers. We have an average of 4 to 6 patrols that go out every weekend in the winter, more in the summer, but in the winter it's less. We also have 9 volunteer women's council members and 3 grandmothers councils. But yeah, it's all volunteers, so it's nothing stable. Without our staff, I'm not sure if we would have to look at continuing in a diminished capacity or what that would look like exactly.
As a patrol yourself, how long have you been a patrol for, volunteering for with Bear Clan?
I've been with Brandon Bear Clan since August 2017.
Okay.
So just a couple months after they started.
Okay, and what have you noticed in terms of, what the needs in the community have been since you started? What kind of stuff has Bear Clan done?
The needs have definitely increased substantially. Just the level of hunger on the streets it's heartbreaking. The mental health concerns, substance misuse, it's all increased significantly since 2017. In 2017, we had 900 contacts, which is like the number of people that we would talk to when we were out on patrol. And in 2024, we had 9,896.
Wow.
Yeah.
And are you even able to keep up with the volunteers that you have to without those kind of? And when you talk about contacts, is that what does that mean when you make contacts?
That would be we keep track of just the people that we talk to when we're out on patrol, and so we're just there's more people. If you're looking at just the number of people who are facing insecure housing or are currently homeless, in 2017 that number was 29, and in 2024 it's well over 6,000. So.
Well, Janelle, thanks for joining us this afternoon, and do stay in touch if funding comes through or if anything else. In the meantime, how can people get in touch?
They can contact us through our Facebook page or through the Friendship Center where we're based out of at 603 Princess Avenue.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot, and all the best.
Thank you so much.
Janelle Zazalak is a volunteer patrol and chair of the Brandon Bear Clan's Women's Council.
When you have to leave everything behind,
you're just trying to find a way to stay here for a better life.
What are the real costs of making a new start?
I have faced so many hardships financially, emotionally, and physically.
A CBC News series looks at what it's really like for newcomers.
I am losing hope.
Welcome to Canada, the immigrant experience.
Prepare yourself because coming here is not that easy.
Everywhere you get CBC News.
12:12 right now. You're listening to Radio Noon on CBC Radio 1. And if you got an RRSP or you don't, or you're like, what's an RRSP? Well, stay tuned after 12:30. We are opening up the phone lines. That's our call-in conversation. We're going to have a financial expert join us to talk about whether an RRSP is right for you and how to make the most of it, because that deadline for RSP contributions is only a week away. So we're going to get your advice and we're going to take your questions after 12:30. Also, this half hour on the show, we're going to hear from a Ukrainian living in Dauphin about how he's feeling 3 years after Russia invaded his country. But first, let's take a look at your current conditions right across the province. Right now, the cold spot in Manitoba is Churchill. It's minus 26, so still very cold up there. But as you get further south, things get warmer and warmer and warmer. Down south here in Manitoba, in southern Manitoba, let's look to Brandon now at the airport. Mainly sunny and 2 degrees right now in Brandon. Dauphin at the airport, cloudy. You're sitting at 0 right now. Flin Flon, you got some light snow. You're sitting at minus 8. Gillam, partly cloudy. You are minus 17 right now. And the hotspot is Morden right now at 4 as well. Thompson, you are at minus 14, mostly cloudy at the airport. And Winnipeg at the Forks, 4 degrees. Well, next on the show, after struggling to keep its doors open for years, Kismet Creek Farm is closing its doors for good. They are an animal rescue and petting farm south of Steinbach and have been in business for close to 8 years. But after years of financial challenges, the farm is up for sale. Carl Schoenrock is the owner and operator of Kismet Creek Farm. Hello there.
Hi, Corey.
So tell us, what made you decide to close down?
Well, the bills coming in. That's what fundamentally made me decide. Not seeing the numbers coming in through the doors, the cold temperatures. Everything kind of compounds. When it finally gets down to it, it's time when things start adding up, or in this case, not adding up.
Why aren't people coming?
I don't know. I think it's changing times for people. Like, I've been almost 7.5 years in operation, and the numbers were increasing, and then COVID came and everybody kind of hid inside because that's all we were allowed to do. And I just haven't seen those numbers come back. I've tried different things to get people out here, but sometimes it's easier and cheaper just to stay at home and sadly keep the kids on their electronics or video games instead of making the trek out here, getting them outside in nature and spending the time. Time is very valuable for people nowadays.
How hard was it to come to this decision for you?
Very hard. This was my family farm. I retired from the military, and I put most of my pension into building this place and putting in all the work, working full-time construction and doing this every weekend. I never received a wage from the farm here. That wasn't the point. I did it for the kids. I did it for families. My son is 8 years old now, so it was partially for him as well, to give him that similar environment I had growing up, growing up on a dairy farm and just having the freedom of play outside, using your imagination. But sadly, the times are changing, I guess. And yeah, I think it's in detriment to the children.
I know at one point you even actually, because this isn't just a now thing, I know it's kind of been touch and go for a little while, you had a fundraiser to support the farm, and at that time you were worried about the animals, things like that. So how did that fundraiser help? Did it pretty much just postpone the inevitable for you?
It did. It wasn't this last Christmas. It was the Christmas before. My volunteers started a GoFundMe. I have personally never been one to ask for money. I thought of always providing a service. And here the service was getting kids outside, teaching about the animals, and getting families together and having fun outside. And it never went that way. So it's sad. But yeah, I just kind of postponed it. I thought it would turn around. I thought people would more and more followers, but more and more followers, it's easier to swipe and see the cute animals and then just carry on compared to actually coming down here. So it did delay it, sadly. I thought it would turn around, but here we are.
So what will this mean for the 130 or so animals on your farm?
They're all getting rehomed. I'm not selling them. I originally had to sell a few animals just this last winter just in order to help pay the bills, but that was never my point of doing this space, and that was one of the most realizing factors that, well, if I have to do that, then that's not the point. But with those 3 that I did sell, it saved all the rest of these for a little bit longer. There was always a little bit of hope. But now all the rest of these animals, they're getting rehomed. I have placements for every single one, all friends, all people I know, neighbors around here that have always visited the place. They've connected with an animal or 2 or 5, and we have some space. Can we take them? No problem. As long as I can come visit them, then I'm happy as can be.
So have they all been rehomed already, or are you still in the process of something?
No. I have all their names down, but I'm trying to be open as long as I can. The farm will be going up for sale in the next day or 2. It will be listed. So up until that point, and when everything closes, and when somebody wants to take possession, I want to try and be open as long as I can, because I think it's important for those families to be given the chance to say goodbye.
Mm. And what's next for you once it does sell?
Well, one of the things we started here this last fall was a preschool. Well, not a preschool. It's more of a farm school for preschool-aged children. So we've been doing that, and we're going to continue doing that at a new location with my partner. She and I are going to have more kids come there, and fundamentally, that is what I've really enjoyed is seeing those younger kids getting their first connection, their being around the animals, building up their immune system, going outside, getting into nature. That's what I've always really enjoyed, and I'm going to be able to continue that. It won't be here on my family's property, which is a wonderful property, but she also has a great property, and we're going to continue that there and keep on teaching the next generation about these animals and getting them outside.
What's it going to be like for you to say goodbye to those animals once they do all get kind of rehomed, and for your family as well, which I'm sure has also built a relationship with them?
Well, it's going to be hard. I'm going to see them slowly all disappear. I'm the one that's been here for them since they got here, and taking care of them and giving them injections, giving them their vaccinations, shearing them, helping with the hoof trimming, things like that, and working on the fencing, working on the yard, bringing in toys here. All that was a part of it. But once you start seeing these lovely animals go, that's when it's going to be a little saddening. But I'm never one to focus on the negative. Focusing on the positive is always where I'm at. So I'm just going to be focused on bringing as many as I can over to my partner's place, and we'll have some of those animals there, and then I'll still be able to see them if I want to, because I know where they're all going to be going.
Is there an animal you've grown the closest with over the years?
There's been too many, because everyone has their own personality. One is loving and comes up to you. One just wants treats. One just wants to snuggle. You get up to the cows and they'll come rub their heads on you. The pigs will do the same. Like all the cats will jump on you. The chickens will follow you around. Like every animal is special to me, and I'm just glad I got to enjoy that. And for those families that did come to visit, and those kids that they got to see that as well, and hopefully connect with these animals.
Well, Carl, thanks for your time this afternoon, and all the best.
Thank you, Corey.
Carl Schoenrock is the owner and operator of Kismet Creek Farm, an animal rescue and petting farm located just south of Steinbach.
New on CBC Gem this February. 3 inspiring films that celebrate Black history. Summer of Soul unearths never-before-seen footage of the Harlem Cultural Festival in 1969, featuring music's greatest artists. Invisible Beauty profiles fashion icon Beth Ann Hardison and her lasting impact. And Queen of Glory takes us on an intimate journey of the Ghanaian immigrant experience. Watch them all for free, starting February 1st on CBC Gem.
12:22 right now. You're listening to Radio Noon on CBC Radio 1. I'm Corey Funk. Well, next on the show today marks 3 years since Russia invaded Ukraine, and since then 29,000 Ukrainians have come to Manitoba, and Alexei Vlasov is one of them. He moved to Dauphin in 2022, and I spoke with him earlier today and started by asking him how he's feeling on the anniversary of the Ukraine war.
Honestly say it's a very hard day for me, myself, and for my family, for whole Ukrainian nation, because that's third year of full invasion, but it's already 11th years how it started since 2014, while Putin army occupied eastern part of Ukraine. I'm coming recently from eastern part of Ukraine. I am coming from Mariupol, this Donetsk region. Pretty huge city, right now totally destroyed, as many other cities of this war. So for us, that's very heavy time, but I'm very thankful what we are in here in Canada in safe place.
How are your family and friends back in Mariupol doing?
Unfortunately, they cannot escape it from Mariupol. Why? Because occupied regime. So they made it one tricky things. They give to people instead of normal passport, Russian passports. And with this passport, they can cross a border. So that's like a concentration camp on a whole territory of occupied territory. So they cannot escape it, and they cannot move it on other countries. Because Ukrainian passport, many of them lose it due to war, and many houses, many buildings almost destroyed. So they losing their stuff together with the passport. So, yep.
This also comes at a at a big shift politically now that there's the Trump administration and they are in talks with Russia right now, and that don't include Ukraine. How do you feel about where those talks are and what's going on in terms of the discussions about what to do about the Ukraine war?
So you see, my full respect, first of all, for American people. Why? Because thanks to this is people and thanks to people of goodwill in the United States, in Europe, in Canada, in Japan, in South Korea, everywhere where Ukraine receiving financial help, defense equipment, we are survived. So this is 3 years of full invasion. But right now, as far as I saw it, I am so upset because people choose it politicians who decided change it everything. So they already don't care about democracy. They don't care about freedom. They care about just the money and pockets. So everything should go in their pockets. And that's very sad.
And in the meantime, you're in Dauphin right now. You've been there since 2022. What's it been like for you being in Dauphin and, integrating as part of the community there?
So you see, regarding Dauphin, in 3 years in Manitoba as well, we're receiving so warm welcome in here. A lot of support from different nationality, from all Canadians. And we're so grateful for that. Why? Because without this support, it will be really hard. We're searching for a safe place, in like an anchoring point for our family. And thinking regarding different places. But fortunately, we have found a Dauphin. And for us, that's our home right now. We have a job. Our kids happy, they have education. They get education in high school, in middle school, in elementary schools. So my family really happy in here and very grateful for this support what we get from whole Manitoba and Canada as well.
Well, Alexei, thanks so much for your time and all the best.
Thanks a lot for Corey for interview. Yep, all the best for you as well.
Alexei Vlasov and his family moved to Dauphin from Ukraine in 2022. I spoke with him earlier today. And as just moments ago, U.S. President Donald Trump and French President Emmanuel Macron met at the White House to discuss, at least in part, the Ukraine and the Ukraine war. And CBC is doing full coverage of that right now live on CBC Newsnet. You can tune into that right now on CBC Newsnet.
Your local news at your fingertips.
CBC News has a local news app made for your phone or tablet.
So don't waste time scrolling for the local stories you want. Just download the app to get the information that matters to you when it happens.
And how you want it.
Another way to get your local news. The CBC News app. Download it today.
Well, 12:29 right now. We are coming up on the news, but first we do want to open up our listener line. Young or old, it's never too late to start saving for retirement. And maybe that could mean an RSP, but if you're like, what is an RSP? Or maybe you're the kind of person who has an RSP, but you don't really know how to make the most of it. Well, coming up after 12:35, we are opening up those phone lines to answer your questions. We're going to have a financial expert on to talk about that. So give us a call. Here's the number, 204-780-0893. That's 204-780-0893. Our director, Sierra, is standing by to take your calls with your questions about RRSPs, whether you need one or not, or maybe you just want to know how to use it as good as you can. Give us a call. We're opening up the phone lines after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. At 12:30, we're at plus 4 degrees with mainly sunny skies over downtown Winnipeg. Good afternoon. I'm Matt Humphrey. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is not ruling out sending Canadian troops to Ukraine as part of a possible ceasefire deal. He was speaking at a news conference in Kyiv alongside the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and European leaders. Anna Cunningham has been following the day's developments.
This is an important day for all of us. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau greeting the Ukrainian delegation at Kyiv station, arriving by train from Poland, still the safest way to enter the country 3 years on from Russia's full invasion.
Prime Minister, please, this way.
The bursts of air raid sirens across Kyiv this morning did not stop this meeting. President Volodymyr Zelensky sitting with Prime Minister Trudeau and 12 other European leaders, other countries joining remotely. Prime Minister Trudeau making clear who the aggressor is in this war.
Russia's actions are nothing short of a direct attack against the rules-based international order.
Announcing further Canadian military aid, Trudeau said everything must be done to enable Ukraine to secure a just and lasting peace. This meeting in Kyiv is a show of strength, coming after a week in which the US President Donald Trump appeared to soften his country's stance towards Russia. Anna Cunningham, CBC News, London.
In Winnipeg, the Nestawaya River Trail is now closed for skating. The walking path beside the skating path is still open. Forks officials are asking you stay off the skating surface for the time being. The Canada Water Agency is spending more than $1 million to clean up algae blooms at the Lake of the Woods. The money will fund 4 projects, and 2 of the groups involved in the work are Indigenous. Grand Council Treaty 3 and the Métis Nation of Ontario will collaborate with the Water Agency to reduce phosphorus and other nutrients in the Lake of the Woods basin. The lake is vital to Indigenous culture, fishing, and biodiversity. It's also a popular recreational area. And more than 200,000 Manitobans are ready to get rid of their paper health cards. The province says that's how many have gone online to register for the new plastic cards. Last month, the province announced the online registration for people who want to get the new cards. People who applied should begin receiving the cards in the next few days. The province says the plastic cards are produced in Canada by a Canadian company. And that is your CBC News from Winnipeg. For news anytime, you can head to cbc.ca/Manitoba, or you can use the CBC News app.
Thank you very much, Matt.
Back soon.
That's Matt Humphreys at our CBC News desk. Welcome back to Radio Noon here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Corey Funk, and I am joined by Riley Lachuk, our CBC weather specialist, who I think last time I was hosting was the beginning of that, I think it was, 2 years of minus 30 or so?
Oh, yeah.
And then you said,
Makes
it's
sense.
going to be cold forever. But now I think you've returned to good guy status.
I
so it's good to have you back.
seem to be back in everyone's good books.
Yeah.
Unless you're trying to go on the river trail.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Actually, I do have an update for that. Actually, I got an update from Zachary Peters.
Yep.
With the Forks, he said it's actually closed today.
Yep.
Just the skating part of it, due to how cold, how warm it's been. You can still walk alongside it, but the skating part is closed.
I mean, yeah, at temperatures like we've seen the past couple days, it will get soft really fast, that ice. And the other thing is we haven't been getting cold at night the past couple nights. So, I mean, it was going to happen when the temperatures warmed up, right? And there's not much of a cool down or a return to seasonal in the books here until we get later into the week, which I'll get into. Right now, Winnipeg, Gimli, Steinbach +2, Brandon, Melita both at 2 degrees as well. You can really see on the current conditions where the jet stream really cuts through the province. So, for example, Swan River's at -2, the Paw just a couple hours up the highway -6. Thompson's at -14. So you can really see where southern Manitoba's on the warm side of that jet stream with that warm Pacific air, with some of the colder air to the north of that, still seeing the influence of some of that Arctic air into parts of northern Manitoba. I mean, mainly cloudy skies really across the province. We have seen some peaks of sunshine here in Winnipeg through the morning hours at least. Bit of a sunnier day to the west into places like Brandon, Roblin, Russell, seeing a little bit of sunshine through the morning. Really do expect that cloud cover to kind of ebb and flow through the day, although in the Red River Valley, I think we're looking at a mainly cloudy day. And I mean, anytime you see some of this cloud cover, there is the chance that we could see some scattered showers, a few raindrops, a few flurries as we get into the overnight hours into Tuesday morning. Same deal tomorrow, a bit more in the way of sunny breaks through Tuesday. Wednesday, another mainly cloudy day. Maybe some flurries into the afternoon hours, but temperature staying well above seasonal for this time of the year. Most of southern Manitoba looking at highs of 3 this afternoon, -11 in Thompson, Gillam looking at -15, up to +2 tomorrow in Winnipeg, +1 for Wednesday, -1 for Thursday, and Friday looking at a chance of flurries. The temperature starts at 0, falling through the afternoon hours.
Thank you very much, Riley.
Welcome.
That is Riley Lachuk, our CBC weather specialist. Well, 12:35 right now, which means it is time for our call-in conversation. I'm curious, what comes to mind when you hear the term registered retirement savings plan? It's okay if you say confused or maybe intimidated. They're known as RRSPs. And whether you have one or not, an RRSP can actually do a lot of things, and it can be hard to know how to get the most out of them. And with the RRSP contribution deadline a week away, March 3rd, we're opening up the phone line to take your questions about them. Perhaps you don't have one but are thinking about getting one, or like me, you've had one for a while but you actually don't really know how to make the most of it. Call us, 204-780-0893. That's 204-780-0893. Tell us your situation. Ask your question. You can also text us, 204-588-7355. That's 204-588-7355. And joining me now is Evelyn Jacks. She's a personal tax and finance author and founder and president of the Knowledge Bureau, a national education institute focused on financial education. Good afternoon to you, Evelyn.
Hello, how are you today?
Good. Thanks for joining us. So I'm curious, just to start, I kind of wanted to start with the basics here. So, I mean, how do you know if an RRSP is something that's right for you?
It's a good question because not everybody qualifies. And so to begin with, you have to have earned income from the year before. And earned income are things like employment income, self-employment income, a few other sources, but you have to have filed a tax return and declared to the government that you have this earned income. And that can be babysitting income, or it can be lawn care income. So even young kids can start accumulating RSP contribution room. And when you file your tax return, you're going to get a notice of assessment, and it'll tell you what your unused RSP contribution room is, and then you can start contributing. So that's step one. And I'll tell you why the kids are important a little bit later. But let's get to step 2, which is how much can you contribute? And it's 18% of that earned income figure up to a maximum dollar amount. I mean, this is where people get a little bit intimidated, because we hear a lot about the maximum dollar amount, which actually for the 2024 tax year is over $30,000. And so most people think, well, I can't do that. So I'm not going to do an RSP. But remember, it's 18% of your earned income to a maximum of that high dollar number. And so what's important is to get started, because when you put money into an RSP, it's going to reduce your net income. And that does 2 things. It helps you reduce the taxes you're going to pay, but it also can increase important refundable social benefits that we have in Canada, like the GST credit or the Canada Child Benefit. So as your income goes up, those credits can get clawed back. So an RSP reduces your net income and can actually generate new tax-free income all year long from those Canada Child Benefits or GST credits. And so people think, well, this is for the rich or the high income earners. But I have to tell you, the people who pay the highest marginal rates in Canada are people who get clawed back on those important social benefits. And the RSP is one way to fight back.
I'm also curious though too. So it's for anyone who has income, but is it always right for someone? Is there any drawbacks to an RSP, or is there some, are there some alternatives that people should consider instead?
So if one of the things that Canadians are doing very well is that they are starting to put more money into their tax-free savings accounts, so known as a TFSA. The tax-free savings account is a wonderful account because you can accumulate your earnings tax-free along the way and then take the money out. It's a great emergency fund, but if you have the discipline to leave it in there, we've done some of the math, and that can amount to millions of dollars by the time you're age 65 if you leave the money in for your working life of 40 years. And the good news then is that you don't have any taxable withdrawals, whereas with an RSP, because you get a deduction going in when the money goes in the door, later on, you're going to have to pay tax on the principal and the earnings. So the RSP is contributed pre-tax, and the TFSA is contributed after tax. There is one other account that's probably the best combo of the 2, and that is a first home savings account. With a first home savings account, you get a deduction going in, your earnings accumulate tax deferred, and in fact tax-free if you take the money out to buy your first home. So that's a win-win-win. And those people who are eligible should consider doing that first.
We actually have a text here from someone with a question, and this is interesting. So they said, with all the stuff, this is from Brian who texted us. The text line, by the way, 204-588-7355. That's 588-7355. Brian texted, with all the stuff happening in the U.S., should we be worried that our RSPs are going to start doing poorly and even losing money right now?
That is such a great question, Brian. And of course, we're all concerned about uncertainty. And whenever we go through periods of uncertainty, like we're going through now, it causes us to want to trigger some financial decision. And so the first thing I have to say is that through all the various periods of volatility we've had, you can think about the 2008 banking crisis, we've had the pandemic, now we've got, these economic triggers. What's happened is the market has ebbed and flowed, But by and large, if you stuck to your plan, then things have corrected themselves. And sometimes they take longer and sometimes a little bit less so. But in this situation, it's important to stick to plan. And if you have a well-diversified portfolio, and you should speak to your financial advisor about this and definitely ask the questions you have now. Your RSP should be okay. You're going to have some volatility. But remember, the reason why you put that money away into your RSP is to save for your retirement. And for most people, that's a ways away. And even if you're closer to retirement, ask the question about what would you do differently? What could you do differently? Because the market as a whole is going to be experiencing these fluctuations during this time. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. And if anyone else has any questions, you can give us a call, 204-780-0893. You can ask Evelyn directly. That's 204-780-0893. You can also text like Brian did, 204-588-7355. And what people may not realize is that RRSPs don't all come in the same shape and size necessarily. So what should people know maybe when they're starting about the type of RRSPs what type of RRSPs there are?
Well, for most people, having a self-directed RSP is a good idea because they can make some decisions and get involved in the investment process with their financial advisor. But you don't have to do that. You can have just a plain vanilla RSP as well. I would like to mention that the RSP, while we think about that as something that we use to reduce taxes for the reasons I told you before and to save for retirement, you should ask about the two features in the RSP, which many people don't know about. There is a home buyer's plan and a lifelong learning plan that allows you to take money out to either go back to school as an adult or to buy a home. And as long as you repay those amounts that you've withdrawn in an orderly basis, and the government gives you a pre-payment schedule for that, and if you meet that, then you can put the money back into your RSP over time without having to add it to income. If you don't meet the prepayment schedule, then the government will add those amounts that you've missed into income over time, and therefore, you'll have a little bit of a tax bump, but not a full tax bump.
We've got Nella on the line. Hi there, Nella.
Hi.
Hi. What's your question for Evelyn?
So I was just curious. My partner already has a first home savings account open, and I was curious if it was worth it for me to open a first home savings account as well.
Absolutely. So if you qualify, that is, you haven't owned a home in the current year or immediately for preceding years, then you should definitely open a first home savings account. In fact, to build the room, that's what you have to do, is you have to open an account. And once you've opened that account, you are limited to a maximum of $8,000 a year. And the opportunity overall has a maximum of $40,000. So the sooner you can start saving, the better it is. And if you can put that maximum away, let's say you put away $8,000, you're going to get an $8,000 tax deduction, which will reduce your taxes payable and potentially increase some of the refundable credits and some of the non-refundable credits too, by the way, that you might qualify for. So it's a really good idea.
Well, there you go, Nella.
That's great. Yes, that's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Nella, for calling. You can be like Nella. Give us a call, 204-780-0893. That's 204-780-0893. The questions keep coming, actually. We got a text from Bana as well for you here, Evelyn. This one's kind of niche, but I'm curious. So would owning a trailer home for the past 3 years disqualify them from using the first-time homebuyers plan?
Yes, that's a good question, because if this is your residence, then it definitely would. And there are a number of nuances to talk about with regard to first and second residences. But I think for you, the best thing for you to do is to speak to your financial advisor about that. But generally speaking, yes, it will make a difference.
Okay. And I guess there's one thing that probably people are thinking about homes right now, obviously a lot, and there is this first-time home buyers savings plan, but then there's also like that special account now that exists. I think it was open not too long ago. But there is the RSP option as well. When people are thinking about buying a home and what kind of financial product they need, what should they consider? RSP or one of these first-time home buyers kind of savings accounts?
Preferably both. And in fact, if you can swing it, a tax-free savings account, a first home savings account, and an RSP. Having money in a tax-free savings account is so important for those expenses that you don't think about when you're buying a home. And it's expensive to get started. There's all kinds of things you're going to need. There's legal fees and there's professional fees perhaps. So having some money put away in a TFSA is important because you can withdraw the money and put the money back in without losing that room sometime in the future when you can afford it. So that's a great emergency fund. The first home savings account would be the preference for people who qualify, as I mentioned, and then the RSP after that. In the RSP, you can take out $60,000 on a tax-free basis to contribute to your home. And so that makes a nice down payment for that home. So from a tax-assisted point of view, those are your three account friends.
Okay, so go all three. That's the way the trifecta. Okay, so in terms of this RSP deadline that's coming up as well, people might be like, why is there this deadline? What do I need to know? They got a week. What should they think about in the next week or so between now and the deadline? What do they need to know to get the most out of their RSPs?
Yes, so the March 3rd deadline is the one that you have to meet if you want to get an extra deduction on your tax return that you're going to be filing this year, which is your 2024 tax return. Very important for people whose income crept up last year, and investors in particular, because some of them might have been generating more capital gains because of the proposed capital gains inclusion rate changes. Some people may have received a severance package. They should be topping up their RSP before March 3rd to reduce the tax on that. Lots of reasons for you to really estimate your income for the 2024 tax year in advance of March 3rd to see what difference an RSP is going to make. And the higher your income, the more difference it's going to make, not just in the amount of tax you pay, but in the clawbacks, as we mentioned as well. Aside from that, if you make a contribution in 2025, you can, of course, you don't have to deduct it in the 2024 tax year. You can use those deductions for your 2025 tax year. So if you're going to earn more money, make the contribution anyway, but deduct it next year on your 2025 tax year. So I think it's an important kind of reckoning point for you. It's a purposeful reason for you to estimate your income in 2024 and 2025. If you're a senior and you're still eligible, that is under age 72, remember, an RSP can also reduce your quarterly tax installment payments. And your first one is due on March 15th for 2025. So maybe if you contribute to an RSP, you'll be able to reduce your quarterly installments. And the last thing to remember is to equalize your pension between spouses. That is, maybe you should take the deduction, but you should put the money into a spousal RSP so that you can equalize your pensions later in retirement. Another bonus in looking at this plan. So see your financial advisor if any of those bells ring a chime for you.
Okay. We got another message from Liz, and she says, if a person has a home buyer's plan, should they receive a tax receipt from their bank or credit union?
The home buyer's plan is a withdrawal out of your RSP. So yes, you should be receiving documentation from your financial institution to show that you have made that withdrawal.
Okay. And I know you kind of said that there's this kind of holy trinity, at least for home savings, but for retirement, should RSPs be the main way that Canadians save for retirement, or do you think there is better ways?
It's a controversial question because the TFSA, which is a better way to save for retirement, has some limitations to it. For example, you can only save up to $7,000 a year currently. So it's a smaller amount that you can put away in there. The controversy with the RSP is if it's done well, you reduce your taxes along the way, you increase your tax refund, you reinvest that, you keep going, and this thing grows and grows and grows. By the time you get to retirement, now you might have a tax problem because eventually you're going to have to take that money out and pay taxes on it. And for most people, it's going to be converted into a registered retirement income fund where a smaller amount has to be taken out early in your retirement, a larger amount as you age. But, I really feel that giving up that tax deduction along the way, especially as your income is higher when you're younger, is a heavy price to pay. And there's lots of things that you can do along the way to generate a smaller average tax. For example, you can postpone your CPP between the ages of 60 and 70, and you can even postpone your old age security to age 70. So you can generate more income from your RSP earlier in life when you're active and you want to travel and you want to average out that income between spouses while you're both alive. You can get some tax advantages by doing that. So doing some retirement income planning with your RSP is really important because you can actually mitigate and average down the tax you're going to pay on your RSP over time.
Well, Evelyn, thanks so much for joining us this afternoon. I think a lot of our listeners probably feel a little bit more comfortable with RSPs now. And I know I do regret, though, not putting my babysitting money as a kid into RSP. I didn't know. If I would have known that was an option, I would have done it. But thanks you for...
Well, and just the tip there is it will perhaps generate a tuition fee amount for your parents once you're going to university. So there's a whole story there, but that's for another time.
There we go. Everybody wins. Thank you very much, Evelyn.
My pleasure.
Evelyn Jacks is a personal tax and finance author and founder and president of Knowledge Bureau, a national education institute focused on financial education.
What if I were close to you? What if I could hold you? Well, I wouldn't have to say good night, my love. What if I were close to you? What if I could hold you? Well, I wouldn't have to say good night, my love. Gonna take American muscle under this hood. If I'm ever gonna get out of this town for good. Ain't it like you see, girls? You try and tie me down. My love is like an anchor, and all my promises make me drown. What if we could get away? What if we could drive off in the night? Would we be any further once we fed these appetites? Love when I bring you roses. You love when I write you poems. You love to go out dancing, and you love me to walk you home. What if I break your heart? We watch it all fall apart. You'll never be the same now, 'cause you're always gonna hate me. What if I were close to you? What if I could hold you? I wouldn't have to say good night, my love. What if I were close to you? What if I could hold you? Well, I wouldn't have to say.
That's Raymond Sewell with Close to You. You heard right here on Radio Noon. And we are coming up to the end, but first I have a very special Well, I want to say guest, but I guess I should really say special host in in the studio with us now. If you hear that laugh, it may sound familiar if you're a Radio Noon listener. It's Marjorie Dowhouse.
Hi.
Back from parental leave.
Yes.
And you, after today, you are back in the host chair permanently.
I will be back hosting Radio Noon tomorrow and looking forward to it.
I know I was only on parental leave for 2 months. You've been on for, well, a year now.
Yeah.
So do you remember how to talk?
Oh, I know how to baby talk. I'm really good at that.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure you'll be like riding a bike once again. How was parental leave for you?
It was wonderful.
Yeah?
Yeah, it goes by so fast for anyone who's a parent out there. They just grow up so fast.
Yeah, your little guy is, I guess, around a year now, hey?
Almost a year old.
Almost
yeah.
walking?
Almost walking.
Wow. Okay. So you'll
Fun but terrifying at the same time.
Yes. So you'll be busy here and you'll be busy at home
Mhm.
as well. Well, it's
Yes.
good to have you back, Marjorie.
Thanks,
We're glad to have you
Corey.
back.
Thank you.
That is Marjorie Dowhouse, who is the host of Radio Noon. She'll be sitting in this chair tomorrow and for the vast foreseeable future. So we also have another host. We got two hosts sitting with us here. Faith Wendell, hosts Up to Speed, and they're here to tell us a little bit about what's going on this afternoon. Hello.
We're going to talk about the weather.
Okay. Yeah.
We may need Marge's baby voice because some people are not happy about the weather and some love it. So stay tuned because there are a whole bunch of impacts, including the river trail being closed temporarily, in brackets, hopefully.
Hopefully. Thank you very much, Faith. That is Faith Wendell. You can catch them on Up to Speed from 3 to 6. That is a wrap for Radio Noon. Big thanks to Marshall Hodgins, Sierra Sanders, Wendy Parker, and Travis Peterson, as well as Dylan Longhurst. I'm Corey Fung. Coming up on Radio 1, the next chapter. Have a good one.